Good morning, everyone. Hope you are well. I apologize, I'm not in my usual location and it may not be as clear as normal. I've pulled over to the side of the road because every way to Woodside Park is completely blocked. Not sure what happened. Certainly wasn't any petrol, but it doesn't matter. We have to always overcome whatever obstacles are placed in our way. Let's discuss Parshas Noach. And firstly, today's learning is dedicated in memory of all of those that have Yortzeit or are saying Kaddish today. We wish everyone well. So this week's Parsha, as we already discussed, is about Noach. Actually, it's my Bar Mitzvah Parsha. Anyways, so Noach, we know, was something unprecedented in history. Never in the history of mankind did we have the destruction of the world or the top layer of the world, and never did we have it before, and never did we have it since. Why is it, we may wonder, that God decided that this was so significant, the sins, the transgressions, the behavior of humankind, that therefore the world as we knew it couldn't continue? So the Torah tells us quite clearly, and good morning everyone, apologies I'm trying to hold a camera with my hand whilst parked on the side of the road. For those that are joining us late, every road to Woodside Park was blocked and therefore I had to pull over to the side of the road, and hopefully we'll be back at our desk tomorrow if things return to normal. Is there ever going to be a normal? Mervyn, what do you think? Will there ever be the old normal? I don't think so. Anyways, Eile told us Noach. These are the generations of Noach. Now we know that the world that was filled, we're told, with Hamas. Heard of the word Hamas before? Hamas we know as a terrorist organization that is hell-bent on Israel and the Jewish people's destruction. Where did they get that name from? Well, it's from this week's Torah portion. Hamas means violence. Vatimalei haaretz Hamas. The world was filled with violence. People couldn't get along. They stole, they robbed, they pillaged, they were violent, they used force. Horrendous. But if I didn't mention Noach, you may well be forgiven for thinking that actually I'm describing our world. In fact, you only have to go to a petrol station where there's a queue, and within an hour, you'll see people that are filled with Hamas, filled with anger and violence, and they get out the cars and they start punching each other or pushing each other. I was in the queue before you, right? Many times in world history, we've seen terrible, terrible Hamas, terrible violence. Why is it that this was so significant? The rabbis tell us that one of the key aspects to this phenomenon at the time of the flood was that there was institutionalized Hamas, institutionalized deception, institutionalized violence. In other words, where it is that it has become part of the very fabric of society, not just in an isolated place, but across the world, then there is no hope, right? If the whole of humankind, if every part of civilization was filled with Hamas, with violence, nobody was willing to stand up and be that moral voice, besides Noach, but the authorities, the government, the establishment was complicit with what was going on, with the robbery and the thievery and the violence, then there was no hope for humankind. And God said, I would need to start again. And therefore the flood was brought to wipe out humankind, and the top layer of the soil was wiped out. It was literally like a reset button that was pressed. And that is why it is so important, I think. Sorry, I've got a bit of a sore throat, a bit under the weather. Why it is so important for us in our society that when we do see any type of slippage, good morning, everyone, any type of slippage, it is important that we immediately pull it up for what it is. If we see some deception, if we see some dishonesty, if we see people not behaving the way they should, if we see violence, we cannot stand idly by. We cannot turn the other way. We cannot ignore the unethical, immoral behavior that's in front of us. Because if we become accepting, if we become complicit, then it becomes acknowledged as an accepted part of society. And we all know it. There's different aspects of life, but there's certain things that have just fallen by the wayside. And all of a sudden, nobody bats an eyelid, right? Certain things are completely acceptable. Somebody came over to me the other day, not to me, but I heard through the grapevine, and they said that that there's a petrol station and there's a long line, but if you go through the back and you go through the other way and you move the cones and then you come through, you can come up the other end and then you can jump the queue. I said, when I heard this, I said, you're gonna hold on. You're gonna go out the other way, which you're not meant to. You're gonna move the cones. You're gonna jump the queue. It's dishonest. It's deceptive. Perhaps it is even stealing, and it is depriving other people of what they are rightfully entitled to. What are we? What are we becoming? What have we become? And I think it was Oklahoma in America. I don't know if you remember, there was that. I think it was an earthquake. It may have been a hurricane, but the whole place was literally wiped out. The houses were ripped up, and everyone was sent to a football stadium. It was a famous case in I think the 90s, and everyone was living in there in the stadium for a few days. And what happened was, because there was literally like an apocalypse, like a chaos in society, therefore there was no police, there was no government that were running it. There were people there were volunteers that were helping, and therefore very quickly you were able to see human nature. Friends, you were able to see the way people truly were. Some people rose to the occasion, helping others, ensuring everyone had food and water, taking care of the sick and the elderly. And there were others that when everyone was sleeping, they went around pillaging, stealing. It's well documented. They stole at a time when people were most weak, at a time when people were most vulnerable. They preyed on those vulnerabilities. So I think it is when we have crisis such we are living through now, that we are being tested. And therefore, when you squeeze a fruit, what comes out? Whatever's inside. So we have to make sure, as we are certainly being squeezed with COVID, with a lack of petrol, lack of shortages on the shelves, that we maintain the higher moral ground and we maintain our dignity, and we are menschlichkeit in all our dealings with everyone in society. Wishing everyone well. Apologies again that I am on the go. Please God, we'll be back to normal if traffic permits tomorrow. But whatever happens, keep calm and carry on living as a fine Jewish people. Take care. All the very best. Have a great day.